New polling shows Democrats face an uphill battle in their effort to win control of the Senate this November. The latest New York Times Siena poll is looking at the 6 states that are considered to be the Democratic Party's best shots at flipping Republican-held seats. They are North Carolina, Maine, Texas, Alaska, Iowa, and Ohio. The poll found all 6 Senate races are close enough to be competitive. But if the election were held today, Republicans would still likely have enough support to keep control of the Senate. Want to bring in Democratic strategist Rebecca Piercy, and with us, Republican strategist Mark Bednar. He's a former communications director for Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I have been of the mind, guys, that the Senate is more in play than it was certainly a year and a half ago. And the 6 states that we just listed are stunning in that they are considered in many places toss-ups, which, again, when you talk about places like Iowa and Alaska, Ohio, I mean, these are states that had been written off in the swing column for many years back in play. And yet it does feel like it's a steep climb, Piercy. And so I wonder, as someone who looks at these races, if you feel that way, what you see, and the fact that these are the 6 that we're looking at.
No, I feel great about this map. I really do, not just because it's geographically diverse, but because it actually is places I think we can win. In places like Ohio and Maine, these have not been off the map for so long that the Democratic Party is atrophied in these areas. So they do know how to win. It's just been a tough few years and a couple of really tough cycles for Democrats in some of the states like Montana, for instance. But I think that there's a real shot, particularly in North Carolina, where Roy Cooper is just running one of the best campaigns I've ever seen. It is just flawless. He is unflappable, and it's just been really fun to watch.
I do think candidate recruitment, especially in places like North Carolina, is something that Democrats have been crowing about, rightly so in that state specifically, though in Maine, I think there's some consternation over the fact that it's Brett Plattner.
A little.
I think that's right. But across the board, when you look at places like Alaska, that's another story of candidate recruitment, in large part from Chuck Schumer when it came to Mary Peltola. I guess the bigger question here, Mark, for Republicans is when you look at states that are back in play and could be flips, what is the feeling that you and your colleagues have?
Well, when you look at the map in totality, you listed off, Allie, a lot of red states. So Iowa, Ohio, Alaska. These are all red Republican states. However, we need to take into account as Republicans the fact that Donald Trump carried the most idiosyncratic, eccentric coalition that we've seen in decades. And it's going to be really important for Republicans to re-engage those same populations.
Are they?
And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be constant work. That's what luckily we're on recess quite a bit now because we can't keep the House open.
Yeah.
But this does offer an opportunity to go out there and campaign. And part of that, too, though, is having the president himself being out there. If the more rallies he does, the more, it's not just about getting people excited. And you are Ross says. You get voter data, you get people, you get their phone number, you get them to turn out to vote. So the more that is played into the midterms, the better it is for Republicans.
You don't worry that Republican voters might feel depressed by the fact that the president is reporting massive financial disclosures and that he's kind of poo-pooing the idea that there's an affordability crisis that polls consistently show is very much happening?
Well, there is an enthusiasm gap at this point in time, regardless of the polls right now. And that's something that Republicans do need to make up.
Yeah.
But a lot of that comes partially not just talking about your accomplishments, but it is really responsible for Republicans. What they need to do is they need to go out and say, if we keep our majorities, here's what we're going to do with it. Thus far, we have not really turned the corner in terms of messaging on that at all.
I think you're right on that. And yet I think Democrats are also dealing with their own primary reckoning right now.
Yeah.
I was talking to folks, Diana DeGette, of course, losing her seat on Tuesday night, the reality check on that happening on Wednesday morning. And to Democrats who were not overly freaked out by what happened in the New York primaries, the successes for Democratic Socialists there, to them, the Diana DeGette Colorado result felt different. And I wonder if you see it that way and what you make of this larger reckoning for your party right now.
I don't see it differently, and here's why. I think young people, whether they are DSA specific or just more liberal than the incumbents, are making an insurgence into this party, and I think it's a good thing. I think it is fresh energy. I think it is, we've got a lot of incumbents on both sides of the aisle that have been there a really long time and don't know how to effectively run races anymore. That's the problem. The problem is not that they may not be doing a good job here in Washington, D.C., but they're not anchored in their districts and they're not running the races they need to run to win. These young people are, and that is the reckoning that we need to come to at the Democratic Party. It's not about what wing of the party you're on. It's like, are you doing the job effectively? And campaigning is part of the job.
And I actually think in the Michael Bennet, Colorado governor race, I think being out of Washington is one of the things that ended up working against him, because among Democratic voters that I've spoken to, they're just mad that they don't feel like there's enough D.C. pushback. Exactly. And I think that that's a notable piece of this. You know, you said something, I think, in a pretty funny way, like, thankfully, we're out of session a lot. And the reason that the House is out of session a lot, and I get that it's good for these members to be home in their districts, it's more time to campaign, but the reason they're out of session is because they basically can't get it together to do anything on the floor. You understand innately how that was, given the way that Speaker McCarthy had some trouble on the floor with rules and other things that should be procedural givens for the majority. But what do you make of the way that Republicans right now are basically being forced to work against some of their own agenda items when it comes to the president bucking the housing affordability bill in favor of the SAVE Act, which doesn't have the votes to pass, but is now kind of thrusting the House into turmoil?
Well, we got him right where we want him. That's the good news here.
Home? Campaigning?
Right, exactly. You know, it's gonna be hard to get 218 votes for renaming a post office right now. You know, this is a moment for Republicans, like, getting on the same page. This is where, like, one big beautiful bill signed a year ago, you know, this 4th of July, you had every committee with marching orders, and everyone was busy working towards one goal out of a political necessity. Right now, that same impetus, that same drive doesn't exist. There's very few legislative vehicles here that actually has cohesion within the conference, and you know that's a problem when you're trying to demonstrate to the public that we're the governing majority, we're the responsible adults, we should be the ones in charge. Oh, by the way, we can't pass bills off the House floor. You know, that's a contradictory element, and you know, Republicans, while they can run on big things like Trump accounts and good things going forward, demonstrating leadership right now, this is a challenge, and we need to get our act together between now and the midterms.
They also might have been trying to demonstrate something they could run on with that bipartisan housing bill. Your former boss, Elizabeth Warren, teed off on it right in the moment, basically saying this is another way to show the president doesn't care about affordability. And I know Republicans who just sort of like groaned when they heard it, because it was the most obvious thing you could say, given the fact that it was the president himself saying this is actually not as important as the SAVE Act, which is what I want them to focus on. I think both parties would have liked to run on that bill. We will leave it there. I know your answer is going to be yes. Champing at the bit. Rebecca Piercy and Mark Bednar, thank you both for joining us.